So in this video, I'm going to quickly walk through making a pair of 3/4 height moccasins, or boots, if you will. These are based off of the Plains, Native Americans, Plains natives, Arapaho, the Kiowa, Lakota, and so on and so forth. And these are my pair that I wear often. I put rubber liquid sole on the bottom, which is basically a mixture of barge cement and rubber shavings. And then here are some. These are mine for when I go out and about in the woods. And then this is a pair that I made for my daughter out of buckskin when she was an infant. So as of this video, 18 years ago, when she was an infant, I made these. I tried my best at beading. I tried. And then when she was a little older, I think she was about a year, maybe 2 years old, I made this pair again because she was starting to walk at that point. I put the liquid rubber on the bottom so that she wouldn't slip slide in the house when she was learning to walk. And so in this video, go ahead and I made a new pair out of some leather that I have. I'll move these out. I don't have a lot of video, and for those of you cringing, yes, I will do wipe down my counter, bleach and water, so no worries there. But I just wanted to have a platform to show you that out of basically the same style. These are made out of black leather. It's probably hard to see on camera, the detail, but again, I put a rubber sole. I did the same technique that I've done with the other moccasins or boots that I just showed you. And this is just more for me to kind of complete an outfit that I have. I've done a couple of videos wearing the great plaid or a kilt. And so I really only had sandals or mucklucks. And so, went out, somebody tried to call me out on that. I didn't really care that I was wearing mucklucks. So I went on ahead and finally made a pair of these boots that are more, they're not exactly period, they're not exactly, but they should work well enough. The pattern to make this is quite intricate. So I walked through that briefly. When I get more buckskin, my intention is to make from start to finish a pair, okay, of moccasins. And again, the pattern is the same as this, but this is a low top moccasin. I'm using vegetable tan cowhide as the sole. There's a welt in here between the sole and the upper, and then you just modify the pattern to fit a pipe or a top up here for the same design. And then I use lashings that are lashed in here to wrap around. So again, this is going to be a fairly quick video. I know my videos are kind of long and I'm wordy. That's for those people that want that detail or need that input. Again, you can always scrub forward or backwards just to get the gist of the idea of how I'm doing this. This is store-bought leather. I did not tan this leather. And like I said, hopefully I'll be able to, able to tan some more buckskin, because I'd rather make them, traditionally, make a pair of moccasins for myself or somebody else, and just walk through the whole process, creating the pattern, fitting the pattern, sewing, etc., etc. But in the meantime, let's get to it. Okay, so this video, I'm gonna kind of complete a project. Well, a costume, cosplay. I'm way into many different cultures that aren't my own. I don't really feel the need to explain myself, but at least for this channel, many of the cultures that I'm into either have some sort of martial related, because I am a martial artist, related interest, or Aboriginal interest, in that they made things from scratch, they built from the ground up, and I'm borrowing emulating or using or hopefully cross-pollinating cultural aspects, right? So anyways, I'm going to make a pair of shoes or moccasins that I think would be quite appropriate, and I'm going to go through this real quickly. I'm not going to do a whole lot of filming of the process. That will come later. But what I'm going to try to emulate is a plain style Native American mid-length, not high top or low top, moccasin. Okay, so this is one that I wear. I keep the shape by stuffing it with newspaper or rags or whatever. And these I do wear out. But because I'm in an urban setting, I put liquid sole on. Liquid sole is just rubber shavings and barge cement mixed, and you can build up to make a sole. And this is made out of white-tailed deer hide that I actually tanned many years ago. I still use these today. There's some repairs that need to be done. But when I get more deer hide, when I'm able to tan, I will actually go through the whole process the way that the plains natives did. Okay, so the Kiowa, I believe the Arapaho, Lakota, etc. And these are some of the projects that I made, right? So this is kind of the shortened style, and this is an example using actual deer hide, but it's commercially tanned. So this is what they look like. Many of them have a real nice elaborate decorative beading on it. I suck at beading. I can be kind of a perfectionist, so it's something I could probably dive into, but I'm just not very good at it, or maybe I'm overthinking it. But this is quite plain. As an example, this was kind of my daughter's foot. The bottom is commercially tanned cowhide, veggie tanned cowhide, which would substitute for elk or moose rawhide. There's a welt in here that makes it easy to replace, and it protects the stitches. That's what a welt does. And then there's the upper here, and then you could sew in like a flap into it. And then these are some that I made for my daughter when she was really young. She actually wore these, and again I had bells so I could hear her walking. And again, this is the little tongue that I'm talking about, and there's holes here. This is what I'm holding them onto, that you could actually tie them around to tighten up around the ankle or the instep. And then I added the liquid sole, the rubber sole, to the bottom. As she was walking around, especially in the house with these, she wouldn't slip and fall on the linoleum. And then these are some booties that I made when she was really young. I tried my hand at beading. I can do simple stuff. There's some cubic zirconia I added. The snowflake represents her name. But I didn't, because she wasn't walking it, I didn't add any leather, no raw hide to the bottoms. But I just kind of kept these. So these are, people do keep their first little shoes as a thing. So these are some examples of what I've done with this pattern and borrowing this particular moccasin / shoemaking technique, right? Even for my own purposes. Now I like the mid-length height, and there's two ways to make this pattern. You can make this to its like superhero height, around the upper high of your calf. I want these just above my ankles a little bit to protect. The buckskin is denim actually replaced buckskin. Buckskin is extremely tough and durable. That's why native peoples used it. It's light, it's flexible, it's breathable, it's kind of heavy depending on what you're making, but if you're walking through heavy bush, brambles and things like that, you feel nothing, and it's quite warm, especially when it's cold. So anyways, that's why I want to make another pair, and I'll probably try to make a pair of moccasins for someone in this style, maybe a little larger, and I'll go through the whole process. But for now, I'm using this style this look and feel of the boot for this particular project, for, you know, around kind of my St. Patrick's Day costume with the great plaid and sporin and stuff like that. I just don't have any boot. I did have some boots that I paid $250 for from the Renaissance Festival that don't fit me anymore. They've been slightly used. They're actually quite well. I keep them quite well. I polish them right up. They just don't fit. So I may have to resell them back to the makers. I mean, so if we go to the Renfest here and, you know, either get them resized or sell them back. I keep them in good condition. They're very good, but they kind of complement that costume. However, I do wear my mucklucks when I do that. I don't have a black pair per se, so it's kind of obscure. So when I've gone out and about, when I've got my great plaid on, you know, people, you look pretty good, but you got your mucklucks on. I'm like, yeah, I know, bro, I know. And it's too cold where I live to be walking around barefoot. So I'm finally getting around to making a pair of boots for this outfit. Okay, so here's the pattern I'm using, and there's a way to make this pattern that works pretty well because I've done this a gazillion times, but I like to review. Only regurgitating knowledge you can look up on the internet. I'll provide the link to my resource below, because they may explain it in a better way than I can when I get to explaining how to make the pattern. I won't in this video, but this is an instep marker, and this is the actual pattern for your foot for the upper, okay, the upper part, right? So this part is this part, but it's a V shape because I'm going to make it into a pipe or a boot. Otherwise you cut a T shape on this style here, right? So then I have outlined my right and left feet in vegetable tan cowhide. I wish I had some thicker. This is probably about 3 to 4 ounces, but that's okay because I'm going to cover it with liquid sole anyways. And I like walking barefoot, so I do like feeling the ground. But again, I live in the city setting, so these will wear out easy. Plus they're slippery. You do slide, so wet grass, etc., etc. So I'm going to add a buffer for that. But I've already cut out, there's a tracing here. I've already cut out the pieces I need. There's a special way that you actually attach the upper to the bottom to the sole, along with the welts. And the welts are just strips of leather that will fit around, plus I give a little bit, they fit around, plus I give a little bit. You may not see, I know I'm black against black, but they fit around, plus they give a little bit like that. We got 2 of these for each foot. So, and then the black leather that I'm displaying all this on is that leather that I'm actually going to use. So I gotta now take my upper, and I don't really need this part anymore, which is to measure my instep to make sure that it fits properly around my shoe, top of my foot, with socks on. And so now I'm just going to figure out the best and economical way to place this pattern on this piece of leather here. And so I'm going to get my little white colored pencil and trace. And again, with leather working, some leather has marks on it. You may not be able to see it on camera. Obviously you can't see it because I am off camera, but there's little cuts and divots, and when you're dealing with wild harvested animals, deer, elk, etc., if you're using, if it has been harvested using a firearm, there's usually 2 holes, an entrance and an exit wound that you're going to have to deal with or sew up. If you're dealing with atlatl or spear thrower or bow and arrow, crossbow, there's usually just 1 hole that you have to deal with. Plus the animal has lived its life. It may have been fighting, this and that and the other thing. So you have to inspect the hide to make sure that you don't get those imperfections or those scars over life on your finished product, unless you intentionally want to. Sometimes it looks cool. Sometimes, I personally, on me, I have decorative scars, from living life, doing things. So you make use of it. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and cut 2 of these out, and when I cut these out, it's gonna lay the proper way, which is my right foot and the left foot, right, like that. Now the thing is that some people's, normally if you're right or left dominant, if you're side dominant, or right or left side dominant, because you do most things. I'm right dominant, even though I train in Filipino martial arts, which pretty much makes you pretty ambidextrous for the most part. But I'm right side dominant, meaning most of my musculature on the right hemisphere of my body is going to be more developed because it's more used than the left side. People that are left-handed or left side dominant, that may be true. Some people are born with innate unsymmetrical parts of their bodies, and so that's why you want to measure each foot and check each foot when you make the pattern. I'll go into more in that in detail next time, but all you have to do is, once you do the right foot, which is usually bigger on most people, usually bigger by 1/8 of an inch sometimes, you just flip it over, and then now you have your opposite foot, and that will be the upper for that. And of course you want to use your pencil and label so you know which is which, and then and that's how it works. Trace my outline, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my leather shears out and start cutting it out. Oh, and then I want to make sure I did right and then left. You may or may not be able to see this on camera, but I can see it, so I know which is which. The interesting thing is that this colored pencil I wouldn't be able to see it on this side, so that's why I flipped it over. Now when I flipped it over, I wanted this to be the right side, if this makes sense. So I couldn't very well mirror it like this, because that would not be true. It technically on this side would be left, so I had to flip it, right? And then so there was right on this side, the shiny side, the hair side. So when I flipped it over like this, which is technically the right side on the hair side or the shiny side, this now becomes the left side. So I hope that's not too confusing. Since this is black and there's going to be about 1/4 of an inch seam, you probably could have done this with a gray or silver colored marker or something like that on the flesh side. As long as it's not seen. There's ink and dyes you can do to cover up in case you make a mistake with that, but the color pencil works fine on this, and in my head I knew what I was doing. But just be mindful of that. You do not want to make 2 copies of the same. Alright, so whatever you do, make sure you flip it, depending on which side you choose to draw out your pattern on your leather material. Alrighty, so we have our right and our left uppers here. And then I've chosen a piece of fabric grade leather that's actually pretty dense enough, you know, it'll protect your feet, to where I have enough to make the rectangles for the tube portion of the boot. Okay, so this part here, so I have enough to do that, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Also, some other things is that when I made these, this upper part is actually two pieces, and they're two pieces that were not really fabrically. You can kind of, hopefully you can look on camera and see how light and fluffy and, you know, velvety this kind of is, and that's how really your buckskin should be if you're tanning it properly. Sometimes the oils don't get through the buckskin enough, so you have like more of a rawhide or hard. It's actually nice and soft and fluffy on the outside like buckskin can be, but then it's just the middle part is still hard. And so I use that as the upper to help protect my foot, right? If I really wanted to get fancy and technical, I could do that with this, with a very light weight of vegetan leather or rawhide, or heck, I could even put, you know, you can buy those things online nowadays if I wanted to make a steel or plastic toe to protect your feet. I'm not going that far for that project. Obviously, if you did such a thing, you know, with an insert, a metal or plastic insert, you'd obviously have to do your measurements for pattern making different, so it can fit that. But that was something I had to keep in consideration. All right. Also, you know, your toes, you don't want to bang them into anything like that. I've brought these to Arizona. I used to live out there, and, you know, go rock hunting or just go out and look at cacti or whatever is out there, and these work pretty well. And this is even before I put the rubber sole on here. So this style and the way that I designed these using just plain old buckskin, because I believe traditionally boot moccasins are made out of elk or moose hide, a little thicker hide. I've tried to work with elk hide. Yeah, wow. That was a bit of a project. It's very, very dense, but that would have been more preferred for your footwear because of the wear and tear. Anyhow, those are little side notes. Again, this is the right foot, I labeled it. This is the left foot upper, labeled here. Okay, so that's this part of this boot that we're gonna make. Okay, for the next step, I want to find the middle of both of these here, and depending on what side I want out, obviously, you know, I want this side out, the shiny side, the flat side out, because that's the way it works. You're going to sew these together like that, okay? And there's a particular way. I'm going to do a more close-up shot of how you are going to sew through this. Unless you have an industrial grade leather sewing machine to the tune of $1,500 on up, this process is a bit tedious, arduous. There is some work that you have to do to hand stitch these, but once it's done, you're 85% there. You know, now you just have to cut out the tube, the upper part, and this part out, and stitch it to here, and then it's easy peasy from there. But we're going to focus now on attaching the sole to the upper, okay, which includes the welt. Okay, I don't want to forget that part. So here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to try to explain here is how I'm going to sew the sole to the upper. And again, on my channel I've done some leather working channels. I'm not a master leathersmith by any means. I know one or two, and their work is actually very excellent, even to the level of saddle making. I'd love to get there one day, but at any rate, I know enough to be dangerous. So again, for the sole, I'm using vegetable tan cowhide. You know, technically you would use rawhide. You would want to use moose, elk, you know, a bigger bovine. Deer for dresses and things like that is good. Again, like I mentioned before, you might have to double up on places where you're going to get a lot of wear or you need extra protection. But to attach the sole, there's kind of a bit of a technique, right? So I'll go to this in more detail, hopefully in the near future, but this model that I made many years ago with, you know, store-bought deer hide as an upper, and then the veggie tanned deer hide, or not deer hide, cowhide, probably about, looks like maybe 4 to 5, maybe 6 ounces, so it's thick, right? And if I can get this thing to close up, you can see where the seams are. They're coming out of the middle of the thickness. Now that'll be important later. I wanted to note that. But I have the rough side or the flesh side out. All right, because using vegetable tan cowhide as just your lower, you know, your sole, you're walking in the woods, you hit a wet patch of grass or something, it gets quite slippery. So this, using the rough side, which was when the animal was alive, which was the part, you know, on the flesh, and you know, it adds a little bit more grip. But you know, I haven't experimented with this necessarily, but you know, they would use rawhide for the bottom. It can be kind of slick, and especially in the city. That's why I use the liquid sole, as I've talked about, rubber and glue. Now on this one here, I traced this on the flesh side. It has some nap or some texture to it. This smooth side at the factory, with the tanning factory, you know, they made this nice and smooth. This is the hair side, where where you know, you pet an animal, you got the nice hair. So there's a nap side and a smooth side. The same with the upper, is the shiny part, right? This is the hair side. On the inside, this is the nappy side, or the suede side, I should say, right? So what I want to do is I want to take these and I want to put the sides that I want outside when I'm finished together. So holding these together like that, I want the nappy sides out, the nap sides out, right? So when we're done, we're going to flip this right side out, or right side out, and then it'll look like this, and then the smooth side will be out. Now I'm okay with the smooth side being out, because I told you I'm going to cover this with some rubber. All right. Had I thought about it better, then I would have put like in this model, I would have put the nappy side out, because when I add the glue and the rubber, now there's more nap to grab onto, there's more surface area to grab onto, so it's really going to stick. Not that it doesn't stick to the smooth side, because the barge cement is a very good adhesive, commercial adhesive. Nonetheless, that's kind of how you put the bottom and the top together. You want the smooth sides together, or whatever side you want out together, and then we're going to stitch these. Next step, like I mentioned, if you can see, there's stitching that is going along here that is coming out the side of this very thick example. Okay, now I've got my tools here, which is basically an awl, and this awl was made for another project for birch bark basket making, because you got to punch the holes. Primitively,